Namaste, Shubhasayam, Swagatam. A warm welcome to all our friends who have joined us this evening at the Global Festival of Yoga, being organized by Indica Yoga, a platform that seeks to offer authentic, immersive, and transformative yoga experiences across the world in the form of yoga courses, workshops, retreats, and so on and so forth. This is the second edition of the Global Festival of Yoga, and this year, we are primarily focusing on three important themes, that is, healing, well being, and wisdom. We have explored various aspects of yoga, various dimensions of yoga, which will help us to heal ourselves through wisdom, through various practices, and arrive at that state of well being. And today, we are joined with Dr. Mala Kapadia. Dr. Malaji, I request you to come on screen. Namaste, Malaji.
Namaste.
So, at the outset, we thank you for joining us at the festival. It's again a pleasure to have you this year too.
Yes, gratitude, Vinay.
As we are exploring various aspects of yoga, one of the foundational aspects of yoga, if you look into the Ashtanga approach, the Yamas and Niyamas form the firm basis on which the huge mansion of yoga is built. And for various reasons, these two seem to be neglected in the modern day approach to yoga. And Dr. Malaji will be highlighting these aspects, Yama and Niyama, as forgotten foundations of yoga. Dr. Mala Kapadia is a professor, a resident mentor, and director at the Center for Wellbeing and Wellness at Rashtam School of Public Leadership. Rashtam School of Public Leadership is a part of Rishihood University located in Sonipat and is one of the few universities which is trying to bring in the Indian approach, Indian thought into every aspect, every stream of academic discipline. And Dr. Malaji is the head of the Center for Wellbeing and Wellness at that university. Her career has always been around three important aspects, that is psychology, human resources, yoga, and Ayurveda. So she combines her insights in all these areas, and she has been working for more than 3 decades in various capacities. She has also authored a book on emotional intelligence with Indic perspectives and taught courses at various levels, including executive MBA globally. Currently, she is working on a book called or book around Bharatiya Manasa Shastra, Indian psychology. Educational psychology has been an area of her research. In fact, the other area that she is very well known for through her workshops, courses, and programs is Ayurveda psychology. So, this is a very brief introduction of Dr. Malaji, and I invite her once again, thank her for being with us, and also hand over the session to her. Dr. Malaji, over to you.
Dhanyavada, Vinay. Gratitude to Indica Yoga and your entire team for actually having this as a tapas. I really call your work as tapas. And it's a great pleasure to be here again, even in the second year. Why I chose Yama and Niyama, as you rightly said, that we do talk of yoga today. Unfortunately, though we call Ashtanga Yoga, we talk about Ashtanga Yoga, but we start from asana. And asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana. Again, pratyahara is also neglected, I feel. However, Yama and Niyama are the foundation. But before we come to the foundation, let me begin with a story. We all love stories, right? And how yoga came into being on this planet is a very interesting story. It also connects with how Ayurveda came on this planet. Ayurveda came before yoga, is at least this is what the history or itihasa tells us. And they both came out of compassion of Rishi Muni for the suffering of humanity. So in fact, today when the entire world is into lockdown and the fear of so-called pandemic, and people are suffering, right, at various levels. In fact, this is the right time to reconnect with the healing and our well-being from the wisdom of indigenous times, ancient times. So Rishi Munis, this is not the first time that pandemic or human suffering have taken over. They were happening earlier too in various other yugas. And Rishi Munis decided to approach Vishnuji, who was obviously oblivious to the suffering resting on Sheshnaga, Adi Shesha. And when Rishi Muni approached and they said, you reincarnated as Dhanvantari, gave Ayurveda to the world. However, people are still suffering. We need one more science which complements Ayurveda. And that's how Vishnuji gave Adishesha to the rishis who reincarnated as Patanjali. And Patanjali collated all the Yoga Sutras. Of course, I will not go into the story, though that story is also very compelling. And I would say that when you read these stories, you realize how our words are limited and how through yogic practices, our silence can become more powerful. Because Patanjali transmitted his entire knowledge through silence. And that discipline, when we cultivate that as a foundation, and maunam or silence is one of the very powerful tools which would help us in Yama and Niyama. So when we look at Yama and Niyama, they are universal principles. I mean, they are beyond time and caste and creed or culture. Sarva Bhaumatva. And they are need of today's times. And this is what at Rashtam we call meta skills. What are the skills that if we learn that, then we don't need to learn anything else? All that we learn, all the technical skills that we learn, we are able to apply or implement them better. And that is where Yama and Niyama, they are called Mahavrata. Why Mahavratam? Vratam comes from the Sanskrit root, vri. Vri means to practice. Go beyond yourself and practice something which is universal, which is applicable across time, geography, across cultures, and for humanity. So begin with Yama. I would go back again and again to my Guru, and I dedicate this session to my Guru Parampara. One of the yoga guru that I have been lucky to have as my master is Vimla Thakar. She is not in her body anymore, but she was very popular in Europe. It's sad that in India, very few people know of Vimalaji, Vimala Tai, as she was called. She has worked very closely with Vinoba Bhave. And her books, her yoga sessions, they absolutely were based with the foundation. And she says that Yama is not control. Unfortunately, what has happened, English as a language has a lot of limitations when they translate or transcreate the words from Sanskrit. So they may take one meaning. However, Sanskrit as a language is so beautiful, so all-compassing that one word can have various shades. So Yama is not just a code of conduct. Yama is not an external governance. Yama is all about self-governance. It's an absolute value of human life. And we need a healthy life, or we want to create a sane and healthy society, then the 5 Yama and 5 Niyama, our consciousness has to be rooted in them. The 5 as are written here are ahimsa, satya, asteya, Brahmacharya, and aparigraha. We begin the journey with ahimsa. it's very interesting that ahimsa, though literally we translate it as absence of hinsa, or we translate it as non-violence, non-injury, not harming others. However, ahimsa goes much deeper. To understand ahimsa, we have to understand hinsa or violence. Why is it a part of our human nature? Why do we have to cultivate it as a value? Why do we have to practice it as a vrata? Vrata is conditioned to the practice, our commitment to a practice for a long time, such a long time that it becomes our nature. It's natural to us. We don't have to do it consciously. In corporates, people call it, the incompetence to competence. Competence is something that we practice naturally. We don't even have to think about it. How do we move from hinsa to ahimsa? We begin from understanding where hinsa comes from. And if we go deeper and we see the hinsa at any level, action level, thought level, or speech level. Because Yama and Niyama, we would see that all yogic practices have to be practiced at all three levels, not just action level, not just thought level, or not just speech level, but all three levels together. And we realize that the roots of hinsa are there in our fear. The branch of evolutionary psychology in the West is studying how we have come out of the Stone Age, but the Stone Age has not come out of us. And they are unfortunately only studying the brain. They are studying the medulla. They are studying the other two parts of the brain. They are trying to locate where fear is located. However, when we look at, as when I said my passion is psychology or manas shastra from Ayurveda and yoga, when we combine that, we realize that the roots of fear are in self-sustenance, self-preservation. It's our fear of survival. And the moment we are afraid, our mind and body goes into an attack mode, or it gets into a frozen mode, or it gets into a flight mode. So the fight, flight, frozen, which the Western psychology gives only the place to medulla, but medulla is only the one reacting. The fear is in every cell of our body. So how do we remove the fear? And unless we remove the fear, we will not be able to move from himsa to ahimsa. And ahimsa, if you see, it is at various levels. It can be at a very superficial level when we hurt someone, but it can also be the capital punishment. It can also be the cultural genocide, or even the ecocide. When you harm nature, that's also hinsa. And therefore, Vimla Thakar says that ahimsa is when we revere life in its totality. At speech level, you have to be extremely careful. We are sarcastic, we ridicule, we laugh at expense of other people, we ridicule people, we put them down, we scream, we say harsh words to hurt others. I mean, even Gandhiji used to fast, right? I mean, for his self-purification. But sometimes when he wanted to punish someone, he would not punish the other person. And he would say that I'll fast. Sri Aurobindo said that this is also hinsa, because somewhere the other person feels so guilty that because of him or her, Gandhiji was fasting. And he would say that is also hinsa. You want to practice ahimsa? It has to be practiced at all levels. And therefore the mother says that each one has a right to their ignorance. We shouldn't be so aggressive to even remove ignorance from someone. The moment we learn to accept everyone as who they are, and therefore the removal of fear, I'll connect again when we talk of Brahmacharya. Therefore, I'm not expanding on that. But practicing ahimsa begins when we start being aware, when we start becoming vigilant at every moment. What am I thinking? What are my thoughts? I may not actually go and harm someone, but in my mind, am I hoping or wishing negative of that person? I mean, simple. I observe parents all the time. You know, when you are a psychology student, what happens is you observe people, especially at airports or public places. And so many times I listen to mothers or even fathers saying the child is doing some naughty thing and the child falls down. And the first thing that the parents say, see, I had told you, you are going to fall down. And there is so much harshness. And then this child, I mean, I've been teaching organization behavior and organization culture. When this child grows up, when they come to this level, we say, oh, be innovative, think out of the box, be creative. But the child has been put into a box at a very young age by these kinds of words that parents put as a boundary for their safety. It's good to feel concerned about somebody's safety. However, are we subconsciously being violent when we scold them, when we beat them up, and when we invalidate them? Their rejection, not talking to them is a punishment, but that punishment is also hinsa. And therefore, the thought level hinsa is difficult to identify. We see that we, as I know, I mean, when we are protecting our borders, we see that, right? We allow violence at other places. However, Vyasa, one of the great commentator on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he goes one step further and says that hinsa is not just ahimsa, is not just absence of hinsa. It is also the harmony. It's maitri and sadbhav to every living being, to everyone, including nature, not just people, not just animals, also to the plants, also to Mother Nature, also to Mother Earth. And therefore, we begin the Yama or our self governance with the first value, which is of revere to life, which is through ahimsa. Now, one very good question that I leave with all of you at every juncture of a shift from one yama to another or one niyama to another is, how will you track your practice of ahimsa during the day? The best realization that I have had is at least 15 minutes spend with yourself before you retire at night. Just look at your day. It's called pratikramana. It's called pratikramana because we go back, we review our day. Was I violent? Was I hinsak with someone? Did I say something that hurt someone? Did I involuntarily participate in hinsa? The moment I start looking at myself, I realize that I'm able to relieve the violence or the fear, which is at a cellular level. As I said, fear is in every cell of my body. And the moment I realize that I'm outgrowing my fear, I start outgrowing my hinsa too. We have heard stories of a lot of rishis from the past that they had cultivated so much of ahimsa in themselves that in their ashram, no one needed a weapon. A weapon is needed to protect yourself. Hinsa at speech level at times is needed or thought level is needed to protect our ego or identity. However, the moment we don't have fear, we don't need any weapons. Even the kings needed to leave their weapons or soldiers outside the ashram. And their ahimsa had become so contagious that even the animals who are known to be eating uh, other people or other animals would come to their ashram and be very tamed and quiet. They would not show any hinsa because your ahimsa at a cellular level will get reflected in your energy, and your energy will communicate to others around you that they don't need to fear you. The moment, imagine a world without fear. Won't it be beautiful? And that process fortunately begins with ourselves. So this is the first vrata, ahimsa. Second is satya. I mean, we all say be truthful. Satya is the biggest value. However, all of us know that being truthful is one of the most difficult things. I had read long time ago in one of the Harvard editorial, if you want to kill a relationship, tell the truth. Isn't that a sad reality of our society and our relationship? Imagine a small child who has maybe while playing with a ball has broken a window, right? Or harmed some car. The child comes home. What does the child want to do? Tell the truth. The first reaction of a child you would see is they want to be truthful. They want to share everything with the people in their ecosystem. How do we react to them when they are truthful? We either shout, we get angry, we get upset. We, of course, explain to them the cause and effect connection. If it's about ahimsa or if it's about a behavior that they need not indulge in. However, many a times we as adults, we as parents, we reject them, we invalidate them, we scold them. And therefore, all human beings who are born truthful learn to say lies or we learn to hide the truth. It's not that every time we are saying lies, but we may learn to hide the truth because we don't want to have that rejection from people whom we love. So, being true in our intentions and motives, communicating without additions, story making, dilution, distortions, is also our commitment to truth. Satya as speech level. How many times we are like Chinese whispers, right? We heard something and we pass it on to others. Also, telling the truth, as I gave the example of ahimsa, requires a lot of courage and outgrowing our fear. We lie or we don't tell the truth because we are afraid of the reaction. And therefore, satya or truth at thought level will be following the heart, the conscience. Even when nobody is looking at us, are we following the heart? Are we following the inner compass of what is truth and what is right? Also, in our Shastras, there have been a lot of ethical dilemmas, right? That is when you, if I say truth, but if that truth is going to harm someone, do I say or do I say half truth like Narova Kunjarova, or do I keep mauna? Do I keep silence? And one of the advice that I have picked up from the stories from our Puranas, Upanishad is that keeping quiet is better than saying half truth. If we are able to speak the truth, satyam bruvayat, priyam bruvayat. Speak the truth in a way that it is pleasant, it does not sound harsh or blunt to the other person. And again, a question, how will I track myself? How have I been untruthful? Have I said lies? Very simple things in everyday life, and we don't even realize how many times we have said half truths. It's actually, honestly, trust me, it's a wonderful exercise to look at our own entire day and pinpoint the moments when either the fear drove us to hinsa or the fear drove us away from the truth. Also, we must realize that truth is never absolute because all of us as humans have our own perception filters, our own raga, dvesha, the way we perceive the situation, and therefore none of us have absolute truth. What we have are small pieces of our own truth. And therefore, in relationships, many a times we realize that it's always a struggle between my truth and your truth. And maybe there is a third truth which we don't discover. Dr. Subhash Sharmaji, who's known for Indic wisdom or inculcating Indian management in India, one of the pioneers, at IBA campuses, He has created a round circle, which he calls Omega circle. And people sit at different points and they try to look at the truth. It's such a beautiful, such a harmonious way of arriving at a holistic truth rather than thinking that my truth is the only truth. Now, asteya. This is another very interesting yama. And Patanjali, I mean, I'm amazed. I really call him, of course, a sage and a seer. But more than a sage and a seer, I find Patanjali is a scientist. He's a neuroscientist, if you go to see. Because what today the neuroscience is realizing, one book that I have enjoyed reading a lot and which connects us with Patanjali Yoga Sutras, the Yama and Niyama at a very deeper level, a neuroscience level, is by Dr. David R. Hawkins, Power versus Force. In Power versus Force, he says that at cellular level, our body has intelligence. And therefore, at body level, we know what is truth. At cognitive level, we may or may not know, and gives a beautiful example that in one hand, if you keep an organic apple, you don't know whether the apple is organic. At another hand, if you keep an apple which is full of chemicals, pesticides, etc., the energy or the strength of both your hands will be different. The strength of your hand, which is holding an organic apple, will be strong. And the strength of the hand, which is holding apple, which is infested with chemicals and pesticides, your strength will go down. Now let's connect this to Yama and Niyama. What happens when I experience Hinsa? And what happens when I'm experiencing ahimsa? What happens when I'm truthful? The cells at cellular level, my body, my strength, my bala, my virya is higher. And it is the same with asteya. Steya is stealing at a very mundane level. If you go to the deeper level, it is not taking, which is not rightfully yours. When we look at nature, we look at Mother Earth, we realize that we have been exploiting her. We have been stealing from her, even what we don't need. It's guided by our greed, not by our need. And imagine how harming Mother Earth is harming our own self. Because ultimately, Pindete Brahmande, we and Brahmanda, we and Mother Earth are not different. We are made of the same stuff. So asteya is understanding that universal interconnectedness and sharing without getting greedy about it, reducing our needs, not holding on, reducing our needs, and it also not exploiting or overutilizing the resources of Mother Earth. At speech level, at work level, pleasurism, taking credit for someone else's work, copying from someone. If I don't give credit to Vimla Thaka's work, I may think that, oh, she was anyway, her books are not very popular in India. And it's okay. I need not give her a credit as my guru. And I can become a guru myself and talk about this knowledge. That is also steya. That is also a not practicing asteya. So asteya is interlinked with satya and ahimsa. Asteya is not taking credit for others, not taking anything which is not rightfully mine. And I did a course on eco-psychology many, many years ago. It's by Project Nature Connect. Dr. Michael Cohen was the program designer. And there was a wonderful example in that course, which said that, okay, you have shifted to a neighborhood and you don't even know your neighbors. Would you just enter their house, open their refrigerator and take out something to eat? You won't do that, right? And your neighbor wouldn't even allow you to do that. However, do we realize that we do exactly the same with Mother Nature? She said, whenever you are taking anything from Mother Nature, even you are picking up a flower which has fallen on the floor in the garden, please seek permission. Please express gratitude. Don't take anything even from Mother Nature without connecting with the consciousness of Mother Nature. And that's what I realized, that when I want to practice Yama, I have to have that gratitude and interconnectedness. Brahmacharya. Now, this is very interesting because unfortunately, I realize that we have reduced it to celibacy. Celibacy is only one meaning of Brahmacharya. Anyone whose acharana or whose behavior, who's walking on the path of Brahma. Recently, in my research of Ayurveda, I discovered a beautiful simile which says that Brahma is not just the creative energy of Isha, but Brahma also means buddhi, which means the intelligence, which means the entire world is full, the entire cosmos we call it, everything we call Brahma. Brahma is creative energy, which has intelligence, which has information, which has chetana and consciousness. The moment I'm aware of that what is around is also within. And if I am that creative energy, if I am that inexhaustible potential, why would I do asteya? Why would I do ahimsa? Why would I do petty things to harm others? And if that supreme intelligence is guiding my creativity, imagine all the potential from my life which would get translated in any work that I do. So Brahmacharya in reality, as Vimlaji expands beautifully from Patanjali Yoga Sutra, is expanding our consciousness to be more compassionate, more philanthropic, more ecologically guided, and that creates well-being. The moment I'm on the path of Brahma, the moment I aware of Brahma, the moment I'm experiencing Brahma, my well-being is automatic. Then obviously no disease can come near me. And how do we translate this to corporate culture? How do we translate this to the business leaders? The moment they look at their business strategy, their business plans, their product development from this perspective, and they are not stealing from Mother Earth, they are not making profit out of greed, but they are doing it from loka sangraha or sustenance or well-being of everyone. How do we track it? Again, every night I have to look at, was I on the path of Brahma? Aparigraha. Again, we realize that which is no, non, not to do it. And it's more of a self-governance, right? This no, nobody else is telling me. But my own conscious, my own chetana is telling me. Parigraha is greed. Parigraha is holding on to more than what I need, rather than sharing with others. And we realize that parigraha is not about material aspects. Parigraha is also about knowledge. There is a beautiful story of Brahma Rakshasa, that when we don't give knowledge, whatever knowledge we have, if we don't give it away to others, after death, after leaving the body, you cannot attain moksha. You become Brahma Rakshasa. And then you search for students to whom you can transfer your knowledge. So aparigraha is not just of material things, it's also at emotional thing. How much do we hold? On our mobile, if you see, or on your laptops, you would have stored only happy memories, right? However, when we look at our mind, how much parigraha we have done, all the raga, dvesha, negative memories, all our egos, shattered moments, our traumas, our grief. We love to hold our trauma and grief also. We are not letting it go. And therefore, the fifth Yama is very important. When we begin the journey from ahimsa, satya, asteya, asteya gets connected with Brahmacharya, and that allows us to practice aparigraha. And these are the 5 yamas that I practice at my individual level for my connection with society, for my connection with my other relationships at work level as well. And now the outer yamas bring me to the inner niyama. Begins with shaucha, santosha, tapaha, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana. And prior to this, Patanjali says tapa, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana is kriya yoga. The Yoga Sutras are all about Kriya Yoga. So we begin with Shaucha, which is purity, Shuchita. Of course, we need it outside, we need it at the body level, we need it at uncluttered place, right? I mean, it's sad that we borrow 5S concept at workplace to unclutter and keep everything organized from Japan, while our own Patanjali Yoga Sutras are giving us organizational development practices, right? It's all about not just the outer Shuchita, but also inner Shuchita. What food, as I said, are we eating contaminated food? What diet, not just the diet of food, the food to the tongue and the stomach, but food to all 5 senses. So what entertainment do we take? What music we listen to? What things we see? What perfume we wear? What clothes we wear? What is touching our skin? That shuchita or purity, that freshness, purity has to be at all levels. Unfortunately, and when I'm connected as a professor, and a lot of students at management level, I have realized at engineering colleges, I have seen this is something which is absolutely lacking in our students. I mean, I feel horrified when I realize that, oh, these guys are not even taking bath for 2 to 3 days. And they feel that it's very cool, right? It's very cool to behave like this. But they don't realize that Shuchita, as a niyama, if we compromise, we will never be able to practice yoga at any level. I mean, even as a student, if you want to have knowledge, that knowledge will not come to you if unless you are practicing Shuchita or Shaucha. Language, speaking foul language or certain words are seen as cool, are seen as, oh, it's okay to do this. We don't realize it compromises our purity. It stops us from going on the path of yoga. And thought level, of course, our thoughts have to be pure, our speech has to be pure, our body and mind have to be pure. And the bath, the exercises, what pranayama and pratyahara later would do to us is give us this shuchita by which we can progress on the path of yoga. Tapas, again, austerity is a very limited word. Forgive me for using these translations here, but we have international audience here, I'm aware, when I had shared that earlier. But tapas is much more than austerity. Tapas actually means it's the heat of the fire. And the heat of the fire is not only from outside, but it's from inside. It purifies, right? That's the basic function of fire. And tapas is one where we control our mind, we control our body, we control our senses or indriyas from being on an autopilot and untamed. We have become untamed and we have to learn to tame ourselves. The best way to tame the body or tame the mind is get into a tapas. Tapas as a mahavrata, tapas as an everyday practice. Tapas can be simple, just fasting for a day, not eating certain food on certain days. Navratri is going on at the moment. So during Navratri, when you decide to do certain vrata, certain japa, stay away from certain entertainment, that also becomes a tapas. Tapas actually is reformatting our own body at a much deeper cellular level that Patanjali calls samskars. We all are carry forward of our good or bad past habits and memories, which are sanskaras, which are the life impressions. However, the only way to get out of that sanskara and get punaha sanskara, right? To become reformatted, we need tapas. And that is to educate the body and mind. Also, it requires a lot of alertness, right? When you say tapas, you can't be complacent. Completing the work, completing the timelines, doing it truthfully, take whatever role and responsibility we have committed to doing it with my full 100% dedication is also tapas. Swadhyaya, tapas is as important as swadhyaya. So swadhyaya is two meanings, swa adhyaya. So swa is self and adhyaya is study. So one, it is a self-study, right? I mean, teacher has not given homework, my boss has not given me work. However, for my own growth and development, a spiritual study is a lifelong commitment. And I keep on doing my self-study on my own without other people forcing me. However, study of self, observing, self-observation is also the adhyaya of swa. I must continuously study myself by self-observation, by reflection, by taking a pause, by taking a step back so that I understand what am I doing? Am I coming out of my old habits, my sanskaras? Am I on an autopilot mode? Am I my driver is my fear or my driver is Brahma? And the moment I keep on doing this at Swadhyaya, I become self-vigilant. I'm able to observe myself. I'm able to refine myself. And instead of coming from my brain or the medulla fire, fighting or flight, frozen, fight mode, what am I able to do? I'm able to connect with my heart. Because ultimately, as Patanjali says, Hridaya Chitta Samvita, the consciousness, the guru also, he goes beyond just consciousness. He says that, of course, we all need masters or gurus outside, but our greatest guru is within us. And where within? In the heart. And Swa Adhyaya or Swadhyaya helps us connect and reconnect continuously with the guru within. This is the most interesting part. So we began the journey with Yama, ahimsa, satya, asteya, Brahmacharya, aparigraha. Then we came to Niyama, the self-governing aspects. We began with shaucha, santosha, and now, sorry, did I miss out santosha? Yes, I have missed out Santosha. My apologies for the slide. Santosha is post Shaucha, which is so critical that without Santosha, our Swadhyaya or even Ishvara Pranidhana will not happen. Santosha, I mean, literally we translate it as content, feeling that fulfillment and meaningfulness, purposefulness in life. And santosha comes when we don't indulge into aparigraha. Parigraha comes out of greed. Aparigraha allows us to experience santosh, enjoy what I have. We have so many cases in our own life, in our own self, or people around us, where people have everything, but they are not happy inside. They still have that restlessness. I've written a case on Mumbai Dabbawalas. Most of you would know that the Bombay Dabbawalas, the tiffin service people, they have achieved the highest sigma level in the world. And when I was talking to them, lot of case studies, IIMs and Harvards have done case studies on them. However, what I felt is that they were more on their teamwork and coding, etc. And when I spoke with them, I've used their services in Bombay, and I realized that their guiding principle is their spirituality. They are all the followers of Varkari, which is a sect of reincarnation of Vishnu as Vithoba. And when I spoke to them, when I spoke to their leader, and I said, Six Sigma, give me 6 qualities from Gyaneshwari that all of you have imbibed. And the first word he says was Santosha. Santosh means being content in what we have. And that can lead us to Ishvara Pranidhana. Again, Pranidhana word has been translated as surrender. The way Vimla Tai or Vimla Thakar translate is very different. Ishvara is Isha and not God. So Ishate Rajate iti Ishvaraha. What permeates everywhere, everything. So it connects with Brahmacharya. Everything is Ishvara, everything is Isha, Ishavasyam, Idam Sarvam, everything is Brahma. And therefore, I am also Isha. I am also Ishvara. If Ishvara and Brahma are the creative energy of the universe, how do I become that? I don't have to surrender, but I have to follow that path because that is the inner choiceless choice. The moment I connect with my heart, the moment I connect with the Guru within, I'm connecting with the Supreme. I'm connecting with Ishvara. I'm connecting with the Brahma. And a little ahead, Patanjali also describes who is Ishvara. Ishvara, he does not describe as God. Ishvara, he describes as Purusha Vishesha, a person who's special, a person, a human. Purush does not mean a man or a woman. It's not about gender. It's about being human. So who's Purush Vishesha? Someone who's not getting affected by the karma vipaka, by klesha of sansara. Someone who's connected with the energy of Isha is Ishvara. How beautiful. In the moment pranidhana, I'm following the path of Ishvara. Obviously, I'm able to follow the Yama and Niyama as the foundation, as the groundwork. Now, asana is easy, pranayam is easy, pratyahar happens automatically. And why do we need them? I would leave you with this last one thought. Many a times we have heard that Bharata or India was Vishwaguru, was showing the light to the world, to humanity. Today, when we are stuck in these so-called, and I would call it so-called pandemic times, what are the Mahavratam? Why do we need this Mahavratam for humanity? And this is where, again, I quote from David R. Hawkins, that every civilization is characterized by their native principles, their indigenous principles. And if these principles are noble, the civilization succeeds. If they are selfish, they can be superpower in the nuclear warfare, but that civilization will not survive. That civilization will fall because it's not good for the planet, it's not good for the humanity. And this is where I would see Patanjali as one of the thought leaders that Bharata or India has given to the world. And therefore, if we begin the journey with our own self, with the Mahavratam, the humanity will benefit. The world will benefit. Namaskaram, and when I all open for any questions.
Thank you, Malaji, for this wonderful presentation. Though it's a topic that all of us are familiar with, yet the reminder that you provided us. Just give me a moment. There seems to be some echo happening. I was just thinking the kind of reminder that you offered us and the kind of reminder that is necessary for all of us just to, while looking at the far-fetched results of yoga, we might
Vinayji,
sometimes miss about the essential first steps.
Absolutely.
So I think in that context, this was an extremely useful, helpful session. So there are a few questions that are coming our way, but maybe I would like to begin with this question. You presented the yamas and niyamas from the
Vinayji, sorry to interrupt you.
yes.
Malaji, can you please mute yourself when Vinayji is speaking? Please try.
Sure. You presented this whole yama niyama perspective from from the yogic approach, but I'm just curious to know a little more about what Ayurveda has to say. Where does Ayurveda also integrate these concepts? Because if these are all connected systems, somewhere these ideas would be reflected there as well. So, because you are familiar with both the fields, I would dare to ask you this question.
Sure. Thank you, Vinayji. This is one of my favorite, correlating yoga and Ayurveda, because unfortunately in India, what I see is that we don't study them together, right? I mean, Ayurveda practitioners don't really study much of yoga. Yoga practitioners don't study Ayurveda unless they themselves are passionate. The curriculum doesn't officially allow them. In Ayurveda, there is a concept of Ayu. It's a Veda of Ayu, right? So there is a concept of Hita Ayu and Ahita Ayu, Sukha Ayu and Dukha Ayu. So obviously, when we are following Yama and Niyama, we are leading Hita Ayu and Sukha Ayu. And again, this can actually become a session in itself, so I will not go much into the deeper detail. But Hita and Sukha Ayu are actually practicing Yama and Niyama. The moment we don't practice Yama and Niyama, and which we are seeing in the world today, right? Very few people are able to practice Yama and Niyama. And therefore, most of us lead Ahita Ayu, which is non-sustainable, which is creating diseases for us and others. And Dukha Ayu, where we are all suffering, right? I mean, there are mental diseases, physical diseases, right?
True.
In fact, in pandemic, countries which are known for their healthcare have fallen the most.
True.
So somewhere the healthcare industry has become sickness care industry, right? It's not a healthcare industry. And this is where you get connected with yoga.
In fact, just this realization, if we can understand the focus of the dominant approach towards health today as the health industry or healthcare industry or a sickness care industry, I think this will in itself bring about that a huge shift in our approach and our prioritization of things in the modern day world. So thank you for highlighting that. I mean, when you were taking us through the various steps of yamas and niyamas, I mean, at various places, I could see such profound connections between other school of thoughts, or rather, how these thoughts have been made the bedrock of the lifestyle here, how it has been embedded into life. So I was just reminded of those things. Maybe I'll bring a couple of them. But before that, to start with ahimsa itself, I'm sure this was a question of a few people who already have shared here, is that where and when do you draw a line? Because, I mean, on one side, you have various antisocial elements. On one side, we also consider this as a high value of uh, uh, not being harmful either in thought, deed, or action at any level, if that is a Mahavratam. And on the other side, you have at a very gross level these antisocial elements, but there are also other forces, other life forms, which we would perceive to be harmful for us. For example, a cockroach or a mosquito. I mean, these are everyday living problems. If someone is really concerned about ahimsa to its true essence, so how does one interpret this and understand this, or where to draw the line?
Sure, Vinay. And as a housewife, every housewife would go through this trouble, right? I mean, if you see cockroaches or if you see rats, in fact, cockroaches may not even harm you much. It's just that we don't like them, but uh, rats may create a disaster in your kitchen and clothes and everything. So, do you kill them? Do you throw them out? How do you deal with it, right? And that's where you go to your, first of all, the most organic way of surviving with them, and also that they don't harm you, right? So you allow certain spaces, like I recently had a problem with rats coming in, and there are things that they eat away, right? But you realize that when you take out a portion of food, leave it outside your door with an intention, actually, and it works. I don't know how it works, but it works. And say that here, this is your portion, like how you give Deva Bhaga for Yagna, right? You give a Prani Bhaga, keep it for them. And therefore you try and then put certain medicines which are also, they can also be not chemical ridden but organic, right? Even for cockroaches they are available, for rats they are available. So you try not to harm them, but keep them away from the areas where you don't want their entry. The same question, I think I saw one question of somebody doing gardening and weeding out. I have a garden at home, and I actually say sorry to them that you are also beautiful. However, if I allow you to grow too much, maybe the others will not be able to grow, right? And therefore I'm removing you. So connect with them.
True.
Try and explain your intention to them. And then maybe your own guilt of removing them would go less, right?
In fact, as you were saying, that you seek their forgiveness.
Right.
I'm just reminded of this verse, which is in practice in many households even today. Samudra Vasane Devi Parvatastana Mandale Patni Namastutyam Padasparsham Kshamaswame. Like, for my transactional purposes, I'm laying my feet on you. Please excuse me. Please forgive me for what I'm doing. And this kind of organic connect, I think that though it may not bring down the effect of himsa at some levels, it will still make it amenable, and it will still make it will create a proper space where a certain measured approach, whether to call it himsa or an action is a different thing, but that is doable to some extent. Because we also have these statements like ahimsa paramo dharmaha, and then it's immediately followed by this statement papa hetuscha durjane. So this is what I've always found it fascinating when it comes to our tradition, where nothing is taken as absolute in itself. Like, all these high virtues have been presented and has been given utmost place, and a proper space has been created for it. Yet there are certain proper caveats that have been put, so that whatever one does is most meaningful action in the given circumstances. Yeah. So thank you, Malaji, for that. And moving further, I think there are a couple of questions and requests, because you were referring to Vimlaji's works and her teachings. Are there books that people can look into or refer to, or any other material from Vimla Thakurji that is available?
Sure, there are a lot of books. In fact, in Holland, there is a center. But of course, some books would be available in India, because in Ahmedabad, I know that there is a center. So if we Google out Vimla Thakkar Trust, Vimal Prakashan, and she had an ashram in Abu, but she was very clear that she does not want the ashram to continue beyond her lifetime. So she said, I've created my yoga teachers and let them continue the work. But the ashram also becomes like a sansara. So I don't want my photograph and people worshipping me. Let them carry forward the yogic tradition. But Vimal Prakashan and Ahmedabad, these are the two words would help them to get the books.
So moving on to next question from Anjan Nandiji, who says, thanks for a wonderful session rendering with daily life journey in the life path, which self to higher orbit of human kingdom. My question is that if individual self-care cares for himself from the topics that you shared, can whole human beings can be in Brahmacharya? Can they heal themselves? Can they cure themselves? And can they reach that utopian state or so-called utopian state where everyone is so good, everyone is respectful, everyone is harmless? I mean, definitely the way you presented it and the possibilities it offers, and even the discussions that take place in the Yoga Sutra book itself. For example, you have this sutra which says ahimsa pratisthayam tatsannidhahu vairatyagaha. So when is it possible, ever possible, has it happened to arrive at a state where it's a beautiful state, a utopian state, or a Ram Rajya, so to speak?
I personally believe it would. And we all have been to certain places where you don't have to put lock and key, right? I mean, your things are lying around, but nobody would touch it. Like, I now, at the moment at Sonipat because of Rashram, but my home is at Coimbatore in Vaidyagrama. And their patients would come, their Apple laptops, foreigners are there, there is no lock. Nobody, touches a single thing. So you realize that the moment, and you rightly said, I mean, every Yama and Niyama has its own benefit, right? Patanjali says you have to practice it for a longer duration. And if you practice it, say, for 12 years, say, if I'm practicing satya for 12 years, at the end of 12 years, whatever I say will become satya. So it gives us a huge power, right? The same way, or ahimsa, if I practice ahimsa, obviously people coming near me will not be into the mode of hinsa. So I'm 100% sure that the moment we all start practicing, we'll be able to create such environment, such space where the positivity is so much that it becomes contagious.
True. I agree with you on this, Malaji, because I have seen, like, to imagine a whole society in that manner might be difficult. But at least if we can see glimpses here and there, that itself is a good promise enough to show that this is a possibility. And we have seen, Anu and myself, since we teach in few European countries, we have traveled in few places, especially in Switzerland, even in remote areas where we have seen there is a farmer who would have kept all his milk in one place. So people, consumers, they just come, they take as much milk they want, they keep the money there and they go, whether it's for these kinds of exchanges or in the public transport or in many other places. So people do it with utmost honesty. So it's definitely a possibility, as you rightly pointed out. And wherever it's a possibility, it's a promise of a future time whenever it happens. Yeah, thank you very much. Moving on to next question from Rajkumari ji, who says, see, these things are so important and they're so foundational. How can we bring these things into the educational system? Is that possible, or are there attempts being done at that level? Because you're also part of an institution. It's a new university, a new age university, a university with a new vision, and also which seeks to integrate the glorious past. So, what attempts are being made in the educational scenario? Because you combine all these expertises together.
It's happening, right? I honestly feel that the humanity consciousness is really rising to a level when the demand to integrate this in education has reached a level. Otherwise, Rashram wouldn't have happened. Rashram is going to be teaching Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, right? And build public leaders. So we all crib that we don't have the right public leaders, but we have to become public leaders, right? The right way. And therefore, integrating it, of course, Rashtramet is at a postgraduate level. But I'm sure a lot of attempts, and you are also aware, are happening to bring this at school level, right? What if we don't need supervision in exams? We can trust students to write their exams without a supervisor, isn't it?
True.
And if that level of trust and truthfulness, if we can inculcate, because we are actually driving them through fear, right? The entire school environment, if you go to see that, it's more fear driven rather than joy driven.
True.
There is a fear of punishment all the time. The discipline is driven through fear. How do we inculcate? Yama and Niyama, I love them because they inculcate a self-discipline. I don't need an external person to govern me. I allow my conscience to govern me.
True. Yes, I mean, the very fact that institutions like Rashtram are coming up, not just in one place, but there we can see aspirations like this happening in many places, not just in India, even in many other parts of the world. Like there are many places where conscious communities, small group of committed people coming together who are working on many dimensions and many areas like local transactions or local currency and not being non-hoarding as an approach. In fact, I'm just reminded of one of our speakers last year who was here, Ben Vieth. He was again from Switzerland. He's a young boy, maybe in his early 20s. He has traveled all the way from Switzerland to India by walking because he didn't want to take a flight, which leaves a lot of carbon footprint. So he walked down here, and at some point he realized that using a credit card is actually encouraging a system of credit, I mean, lending, giving interest, and so many kinds of things. So he just cut his credit card into pieces. And then the only way that he survives now is through teaching. So he teaches, then he gets something in return. So I'm just the very fact that these people are emerging, youngsters who are seeking authenticity, who are seeking honesty, who are seeking these values. And just by their very presence, as you were sharing, just making it contagious. I think it's a very good reminder of a possibility of a new age. And also, I'd like to go back to this. You were mentioning about the programs in Rashtam. Maybe our friends here might be interested to know more about the kind of courses that are being offered there and how this seeks to integrate the wisdom of the tradition, which includes yoga and many other things, into contemporary knowledge disciplines and discourses. Maybe something that you'd like to share there.
Sure, Vinay, thank you. Rashram basically is a one-year accelerator program, which is Diploma in Public Leadership. However, post there is a possibility of doing MA in research. And even in the accelerator program, we have 3 tracks. The first term is common, as I said, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, thinking of how to think, right? How to think itself is a Anvikshiki, is a science by itself. Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Yama Niyama are going to be a part of their everyday life. Ayurvedic Prakruti profiling is their beginning. So they know themselves at a deeper level, right? And then there are 3 tracks: academic, where you become thought leaders; political, where you become leader in the political way; or there is a civil society. So you become leader in the social field, right? And this can then be taken further into doing your MA or even PhD.
Okay.
And this is, I think, the first program which doesn't promise a placement at the end of the course. So we want the joy of learning, the joy of transformation to help them make a decision, right? Not that I'll be getting 1 crore at the end of my, premium education institute. So in fact, we are creating commercialization of education, right? The moment any educational institution brands itself by the best placement,
True.
there itself you
The
are
secondary
taking
goal
down
becomes
the joy
important.
of education.
True. In fact, the secondary goal becomes important. So it's not about what you learn, but what you get out of it. And the job is not what you contribute, but it is the kind of salary or the kind of place in the society that you seek for.
And therefore, Santosh as a virtue is gone, right?
And just because you mentioned two things, one is the Santosha aspect. Today, a lot of psychological researchers that are very clearly pointing to the fact that the attitude, content and gratitude, these are the two important factors in attaining everlasting or sustained happiness. Because happiness seems to be the go word today. Like everyone wants to know how to attain happiness or more happiness, how to continue to be there in that state of happiness. But in that run, we seem to be missing out. But these are definitely the pointers, even from positive psychology, which very clearly shows that these two aspects, gratitude and content, are the two most important aspects which will contribute towards sustained happiness. So thank you very much for bringing out these uh, insights, but also which are enriched from the tradition and yet so modern, so contemporary in terms of what we need in the modern society. So thank you very much, Malaji, for your sharing today and for being with us. So we look forward to have you again on our forum, maybe to offer a course. In fact, I wanted to ask about the course that has just started, Swabhava and Swadharma, because that might be an interesting concept that you just want to share a little about here on this forum.
Sure. We realize that people know everything, right? We know the product that we are marketing, or we know the product that we produce, but we don't know ourselves. And that's where the seeking of who you are, it makes everyone restless. We don't even know why I am unique. What is my purpose? Why am I behaving the way I am behaving? And I also don't know why others are behaving the way they are behaving. And from that, those seeking, my personal journeys, and whatever I collected from the wisdom of Ayurveda, wisdom of yoga, weaving that into a program has now become the introduction to Swabhava Swadharma, which we just launched last Saturday. It's a 6-session program, but it's only a basic introduction. So of course we'll build on it and take people, whoever is ready for the deeper journey and a higher journey, right? Because as the mother says, higher and deeper are not different realities. The deeper you go, the higher you go, or the higher you go, the deeper you go. It's ultimately the hologram effect. So it begins with the journey of understanding from the Panchamahabhutas to Tridosha to Triguna, Panchakosha. And we are also doing 2 different experiments in this program where we are integrating wisdom from psychoneuroimmunology, which talks of emotions and how emotions are connected with neuropeptides in our body, and what Bharat Muni and Abhinav Gupta in Rasa Siddhanta and Bhoja, Raja Bhoj and Shringar Prakasha has written about the 9 rasa and how they are actually the Sthayi Bhava that guide our emotions. In the West, the journey of emotional intelligence is only cognitive. But when we look at our Bharatiya psychology, we realize that the entire journey of emotions is very integrative, very holistic. which neuroscience is talking about, but the programs on emotional intelligence don't integrate that. And also we are giving a framework of CBT or REBT, which is the Western psychology psychotherapy model, connecting it with Ayurvedic psychotherapy model of Sattva Vajaya. How do we increase Sattva so that we stay away from what is Ahita and we connect through Mano Nigraha with what is Hita. So guiding Mana, taming the Mana, connecting with the heart, so that ultimately we connect with our Swadharma. Or the purpose or calling, the West has different names for it, right?
Listening to you, Malaji, I'm just thinking that I think the integrative approach to things is the way future. A student of psychology studying Yoga Sutras, a student of modern medicine being well read or being knowledgeable in the Ayurvedic principles. I mean, in this manner, if we are able to bring in this integrative approach, I think we'll be equipping our future generation like never before, who can really address the issues that we face because of our lopsided or a compartmentalized approach. The solutions that we come up often is also very partial and ineffective eventually. So if we can have this integrated vision, I think we'll be able to solve much of our problems and we'll be going towards a more promising world and future, I think. So thank you very much, Malaji, for bringing us these aspects so beautifully and effectively. I'll make the announcements for tomorrow and then get back to you for a couple of things, quick things. Kotiji, may I please request you to show us the events for tomorrow? So as we were discussing about Ayurveda psychology, tomorrow morning we have a session on everyday Ayurveda, the wisdom of Ayurvedic daily routine by Dr. Bhaswati Bhattacharya ji, who is a very well-known practitioner and teacher of Ayurvedic medicine, who has been teaching in a couple of IV institutions in US and who travels between India and the Western world, often sharing these insights from the Ayurvedic treasure house. And in the evening, we are joined by Patricia Mayer, who joins us from Milano, Italy, who will be leading us through a practice session on flowing in the breath. So please do join us for both these sessions and continue this journey along with us till the 18th of this month. And I also like to mention to all our participants, because many of you are asking about the presentations or the videos. Yes, all these sessions are being recorded and they are made available on Indica Yoga YouTube channel and Indica Yoga website and also Indica Yoga Facebook page. So these are the three easy access sources where you can connect and also revisit some of these sessions because they are so insightful. Just one time listening might not be enough, or if you have missed or if you want to revisit, definitely the resources are available only for you to use and grow out of it. So with this, I would like to come back to Malaji. uh, you have created a curiosity in people about your courses and programs. So how can people connect with you or follow your work or join your courses? Can you please share your contact details or of the institution?
Sure. Mala at rashtraam.org. Very simple.
So I'm just repeating, mala at rashtraam.org.
That's it.
Okay, I have shared it in the. And this is the Rashtriam School of Public Leadership, which is located in Sonipat, which is part of Rishihood University. Maybe you'd like to look up for various offerings that they have from their websites. And Malaji, one message that you would like to leave our participants for this evening.
My only message is I have wasted a lot of years not doing it. And now I realize that I wish all of us do it more often. Listen to the heart. Most of the times we are conditioned to only listen to the brain, right? However, we realize that brain can be washed. We have heard the term brainwashing. We can be conditioned to think in a certain direction or a certain way, but heart holds the divine intelligence. Heart holds the divine possibility of us becoming better human. And heart cannot be washed. There is no such term, right? Brainwash is there. Heart cannot be washed. Heart knows the truth. Heart holds the truth. And heart holds all our future possibilities. So listen to the heart. It has a very meek voice. So you'll have to cultivate the capability to listen to it. Because there would be many people around you who will say, Dil to pagal hai, dil ki mat suno, dimag ki suno. Listen to your head, don't listen to your heart. You know, it's an emotional fool, but no, heart is not an emotional fool. Heart holds the ultimate truth and wisdom. So if we want well-being and healing, the wisdom of the heart is the only place or the only space.
Thank you, Malaji, for this. Again, I'm reminded of the statement from the Vedas. Hrida Pashyanti Manasa Manishinaha. Manishinaha, the wise people, look through both the eyes of head and heart. I think this is the message that you shared with us. So thank you very much once again. And I also would like to thank all our participants who have joined us from across the globe and who have continued this journey all the while with us. So thank you all once again. Shubhratri, Shubhadinam, Suprabhatam from wherever you have all joined. Namaste.